I settled deeper into my favorite armchair, losing myself in the pages of my novel. The house was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the air conditioner and the occasional rustle as I turned a page. Perfect. Just the way I liked it. The front door slammed, shattering my peace. I jumped, nearly dropping my book. "Sarah, you home?" Max's voice rang out, tension evident in his tone. I sighed, marking my place. "In here, honey." Max appeared in the doorway, his face drawn and pale. My stomach clenched. Whatever news he had, it wasn't good. "We need to talk," he said, perching on the edge of the coffee table in front of me. I set my book aside. "What's wrong?" He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd noticed early in our relationship. "It's my mom. She wants us to move in with her and Dad." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What? Why?" "She says Dad's not doing well, that they need help around the house." Max wouldn't meet my eyes. "She called it our duty as their children." I bit back a groan. Linda and her outdated notions of family obligation. "Max, we have our own life here, our jobs, our friends." I know, he held up his hands. "But you know how Mom gets. She won't take no for an answer." The dread I'd been holding at bay washed over me. Linda had never approved of me, of our modern lifestyle. Moving in with her would be a nightmare. "What about Lucy and Corey?" I asked, grasping at straws. "They live closer. Couldn't they help out?" Max shook his head. "Mom says it has to be us. Something about how we don't have kids yet, so we have more free time." I bristled at the implication. "That's not fair. We both work full-time." "I know, Sarah. I'm not happy about this either." Max's shoulders slumped. "But what choice do we have?" I stood up, pacing the room. "We could say no. Set boundaries. Your mom can't force us to uproot our entire lives." Max's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and winced. "It's Mom. She wants an answer by tonight." "Tonight?" I spun to face him. "Max, that's ridiculous. We need time to discuss this." He shrugged helplessly. "You know how she is. Once she gets an idea in her head." I did know. Linda was like a force of nature, steamrolling over anyone who dared to disagree with her, including her own children. "So what do we do?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Max stood, wrapping his arms around me. "I don't know, babe, but we'll figure it out together, okay?" I nodded against his chest, trying to ignore the pit in my stomach. This was only the beginning. I could feel it. The phone buzzed again, making us both jump. Max pulled away, fishing it out of his pocket. "It's Lucy," he said, relief evident in his voice. "She wants to know if we can have dinner tonight, says it's important." I latched onto the lifeline. "Yes, absolutely. Maybe she can talk some sense into your mother." Max nodded, already typing a response. "I'll tell her to come over around 7. That gives us a couple of hours to regroup." As he headed to the kitchen to start dinner preparations, I sank back into my chair. My novel lay forgotten on the side table, its world of fantasy and escape suddenly less appealing than the drama unfolding in my own life. I picked up my phone, hesitating for a moment before pulling up Linda's contact information. My thumb hovered over the call button. Should I try to reason with her myself, or would that only make things worse? Before I could decide, a text from Lucy popped up on my screen. "Hold tight. I have news that might change everything." I stared at the cryptic message, a mix of hope and apprehension swirling in my chest. Whatever Lucy had to say, I had a feeling our quiet, comfortable life was about to be turned upside down. The doorbell rang just as I finished setting the table. I smoothed my hands over my dress, took a deep breath, and went to answer it. Lucy burst in, all smiles and energy. "Sarah, darling." She hugged me tight, then held me at arm's length. "You look stressed. Is everything okay?" Before I could answer, Corey appeared behind her, a bottle of wine in hand. "Hey, Sarah. Where's Max?" "Kitchen," I said, gesturing. "He's just finishing up dinner." As Corey headed off to find Max, Lucy linked her arm through mine. "Okay, spill. What's going on?" I hesitated, then decided to just rip off the Band-Aid. "Your mother wants us to move in with her and your dad." Lucy's eyes widened. "Oh, Sarah. No, you can't." "I know, but," Max's voice interrupted us. "Dinner's ready, everyone." We gathered around the table, an undercurrent of tension thrumming beneath the casual conversation. Finally, as we were finishing our main course, Lucy set down her fork with a clatter. "All right, enough small talk. We need to discuss Mom's ridiculous demand." Max sighed. "Lucy, it's not that simple. Dad's health is fine," Lucy cut in. "I called him this afternoon. He has no idea what Mom's talking about. I felt a flicker of hope. So, there's no reason for us to move? Lucy shook her head. Oh, there's a reason all right, just not the one Mom's giving you. Corey leaned forward. What do you mean? Mom's on some kind of mission, Lucy said, her voice tight. She's been calling all her friends, telling them how her dutiful son and daughter-in-law are moving in to care for the family. It's like she's trying to prove something. The hope I'd felt moments ago evaporated. Prove what? Lucy's gaze met mine, sympathy and frustration warring in her eyes. That you're a proper wife, I think. You know how she is about traditional values. I did know, all too well. Every holiday, every family gathering, Linda found some way to criticize our lifestyle, our decision to both work full-time, our choice not to have children yet. Even the way we divided household chores was somehow offensive to her sensibilities. Max's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. We don't have to do this, Sarah. We can say no. Can we? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. You know your mother. She'll make our lives hell if we refuse. She'll make your lives hell if you agree, Lucy countered. Trust me, I've been dealing with her longer than you have. Corey cleared his throat. Maybe there's a compromise? You could offer to help out a few days a week instead of moving in completely. I shook my head. Linda doesn't do compromise. It's all or nothing with her. A heavy silence fell over the table. I pushed my half-eaten dessert away, my appetite gone. There's something else you should know, Lucy said quietly. Mom's been talking. To the family, to her friends. She's painting this picture of you as some kind of rebellious daughter-in-law who needs to be brought to heel. I felt the blood drain from my face. What? Max's grip on my hand tightened. That's ridiculous. Sarah's been nothing but kind to her. Lucy nodded. I know that, you know that, but Mom's spinning this narrative and people are starting to believe it. If you move in with her, she'll have even more ammunition, I finished, feeling sick. Exactly, Lucy said. She'll scrutinize your every move, looking for ways to criticize and correct you. It'll be a nightmare. I looked at Max, seeing the conflict in his eyes. He was torn between loyalty to his parents and protecting me. It wasn't fair to put him in this position. So what do we do? I asked, looking around the table. Lucy leaned forward, her expression determined. We fight back, together. It's time someone stood up to Mom's manipulation. As I looked at the resolute faces around me, I felt a spark of courage ignite in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a way through this mess. But as the conversation continued, a nagging doubt persisted. Linda had always been formidable, but this level of manipulation felt different. Dangerous, even. What else was she capable of? I pushed the thought away, focusing on the support surrounding me. Whatever came next, at least I wasn't facing it alone. 2 months had passed since we'd moved in with Linda and Dale. Despite my initial reservations, things had been surprisingly peaceful. Linda's overbearing nature seemed to have mellowed, or at least she was better at hiding it. I'd even started to relax, thinking maybe this arrangement could work after all. I should have known better. It started with a twinge in my stomach during dinner. I brushed it off, attributing it to Linda's rich cooking. But as the night wore on, the pain intensified, twisting my insides into knots. Sarah? Max's concerned voice cut through the fog of pain. You're white as a sheet. What's wrong? I tried to answer, but another wave of agony hit, doubling me over. The room spun, faces blurring as I fought to stay conscious. We need to get her to the hospital, I heard Dale say, his voice oddly distant. The next few hours passed in a haze of pain and confusion. Bright lights, worried faces, the sharp smell of disinfectant. I drifted in and out of consciousness, catching snippets of conversation. Severe abdominal pain. Running tests. No clear cause. When I finally came to, Max was sitting by my bedside, his face drawn with worry. Hey, he said softly, taking my hand. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck, I croaked. What happened? Max shook his head. They're not sure. The doctors ran a bunch of tests, but nothing's come back conclusive yet. A knock at the door interrupted us. Linda poked her head in, her expression a mask of concern. Oh, Sarah, dear, how are you feeling? I managed a weak smile. I've been better. She sympathetically, moving to stand at the foot of my bed. I was so worried when you collapsed. I can't imagine what could have caused such a terrible reaction. Something in her tone made me pause. Was that a flicker of satisfaction in her eyes? I blinked, and it was gone, replaced by motherly concern. The doctors said they couldn't find anything specific, Max said, his brow furrowed. It's like her system just revolted against something. Linda nodded sagely. Well, sometimes our bodies react in strange ways to new environments. Perhaps it's just the stress of the move catching up with you, dear. I bristled at the implication. I've been fine for 2 months, Linda. This isn't stress. She held up her hands placatingly. Of course. I'm sure the doctors will figure it out soon enough. As if on cue, my doctor entered the room, a puzzled expression on his face. Mrs. Thompson, how are you feeling? Better, I said, struggling to sit up. Any news? He shook his head. I'm afraid not. All your tests have come back normal. There's no sign of infection, no food poisoning, nothing we can pinpoint as the cause of your symptoms. I felt a chill run down my spine. So what does that mean? For now, we'll keep you under observation for another day or two. If nothing else comes up, we'll have to chalk it up to an unexplained episode. As the doctor left, an uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Max squeezed my hand reassuringly, but I could see the worry in his eyes. Linda cleared her throat. Well, I'm sure it's nothing serious. That's probably just a passing bug. I'll go home and prepare some of my special chicken soup for when you're released. It always made Max feel better when he was ill. As she bustled out of the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The way she'd looked at me, that hint of satisfaction I'd glimpsed, and now this mysterious illness that even the doctors couldn't explain. Max, I said quietly once we were alone, I think we need to talk about your mother. He looked at me, confusion evident on his face. What do you mean? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I can't prove anything, but I don't think this was just some random illness. I think. Before I could finish, another wave of pain hit, stealing my breath away. As Max called frantically for the nurse, one thought crystallized in my mind. Something was very, very wrong in that house. And somehow, Linda was at the center of it all. The weeks following my hospital stay were tense. Max hovered, watching my every move with worried eyes. Linda's solicitous attention grated on my nerves. Only Dale seemed normal, offering quiet support without the suffocating concern of the others. I was in the kitchen preparing a light lunch when the familiar cramping hit. My hands trembled as I gripped the counter, willing the pain away. Sarah? Max's voice, tinged with panic. What's wrong? I forced a smile. Nothing, just a twinge, but he wasn't buying it. That's it, we're going back to the doctor. No, I said firmly. I'm fine, it's probably just stress. Max ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. This isn't normal, Sarah. You've been sick ever since we moved in here. His words hit me like a thunderbolt. He was right. I'd been fine before we came to live with his parents. But since then... I think, I said slowly, we need to talk about moving out. Max's eyes widened. But my parents are managing just fine, I finished. Your dad's health scare was apparently nothing, and your mom... I trailed off, not wanting to voice my suspicions. Before Max could respond, Linda breezed into the kitchen. Oh, Sarah, dear, you look pale. Let me fix you some of my special tea. I stiffened. No, thank you, Linda. I'm not feeling well. I think I'll lie down. As I left the room, I caught a glimpse of something in Linda's eyes. Disappointment, anger, whatever it was, it sent a chill down my spine. That night, as Max and I lay in bed, I turned to him. I don't want to eat dinner with your parents anymore. He propped himself up on an elbow. What? Why? I took a deep breath. Because I think your mother might be poisoning me. The words hung in the air, heavy and accusatory. Max's face cycled through shock, disbelief, and anger. That's ridiculous, he said flatly. My mother would never... Think about it, Max, I interrupted. I only get sick after eating her food. The doctors can't find anything wrong with me. And have you seen the way she looks at me sometimes? Max shook his head. No, I won't believe it. You're stressed. You're imagining things. Am I? I challenged. Then explain why I've been fine all day, but the moment your mother offered me tea, I felt sick again. He fell silent, conflict evident on his face. I pressed on, sensing a crack in his denial. I'm not saying it's definitely her, I said softly, but something's not right here, Max. We need to figure out what's going on. After a long moment, he nodded. Okay, what do you want to do? First, no more meals with your parents. We'll cook for ourselves from now on. Max agreed, albeit reluctantly. As we settled back into bed, My mind raced. If Linda was behind my mysterious illness, how could we prove it? And more importantly, why would she do such a thing? The next morning, I woke to the sound of hushed arguing. Creeping to the door, I listened as Max confronted his mother. "Don't understand why you're being so paranoid," Linda was saying. "Sarah's just having trouble adjusting. It's not uncommon for young wives to struggle with traditional family dynamics." "Mom, she's been hospitalized," Max countered. "This isn't about adjusting. Something's wrong, and we need to figure out what." Linda's voice turned cold. "Are you accusing me of something, Maxwell?" "No, I don't know, but Sarah and I have decided to prepare our own meals for a while, just until we get this sorted out." The silence that followed was deafening. When Linda spoke again, her voice was eerily calm. "I see. Well, if that's what you think is best, but remember, Maxwell, family should always come first. Don't let an outsider come between us." I retreated from the door, my heart pounding. Linda's words confirmed my worst fears. This wasn't just about traditional values or adjusting to family life. There was something far more sinister at play. As I heard Max's footsteps approaching, I made a decision. It was time to take matters into my own hands. Whatever Linda was up to, I was going to expose the truth before it was too late. The doorbell rang, shattering the uneasy quiet that had settled over the house. I tensed, my hand freezing mid-chop as I prepared dinner in our makeshift kitchenette upstairs. "I'll get it," Max called, his footsteps echoing down the hall. Moments later, Lucy's voice drifted up the stairs, followed by Corey's deeper tones. I relaxed slightly, grateful for friendly faces. "Sarah?" Max appeared in the doorway. "Lucy and Corey are here. They want to talk to us." I wiped my hands on a dish towel and followed him downstairs, where Lucy and Corey waited in the living room. Linda hovered nearby, a too-bright smile plastered on her face. "Lucy, Corey," I greeted them, forcing a smile. "What brings you by?" Lucy's eyes darted between Max and me, her expression uneasy. "We have some news, and an invitation." I sank onto the couch, dread pooling in my stomach. "Oh?" Corey cleared his throat. "We're having an anniversary party next weekend. At your parents' house," he added, nodding to Max. The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the arm of the couch, steadying myself. "Here? But—" "It'll be wonderful," Linda interjected, beaming. "I've already started planning the menu. All of Sarah's favorites, of course." I felt the blood drain from my face. Max's hand found mine, squeezing gently. "Actually, Mom," he said, his voice tight, "Sarah and I have been thinking of going away for a few days. We might not be able to make it." Lucy's brow furrowed. "What? But it's our anniversary. You have to be there." "I'm sure whatever plans you have can wait," Linda added, her tone sickly sweet. "Family comes first, after all." I stood abruptly, my legs shaky. "Excuse me, I need some air." I fled to the back porch, gulping in deep breaths of the cool evening air. The door opened behind me, and Lucy stepped out. "Sarah? What's going on?" she asked softly. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I turned to her, tears pricking my eyes. "Lucy, I can't eat your mother's food. I think she's been poisoning me." Lucy's eyes widened in shock. "What? That's insane. Why would you think that?" In a rush, I told her everything. The mysterious illnesses, the doctor's bafflement, the way I only got sick after eating Linda's cooking. Lucy listened in stunned silence. When I finished, she shook her head slowly. "Sarah, I know Mom can be difficult, but this is a serious accusation." "I know how it sounds," I said desperately, "but I swear something's not right. I can feel it." Lucy was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Okay. Let's say, hypothetically, you're right. What do you want to do about it?" I hesitated. I don't know. I can't prove anything. And Max, he wants to believe me, but I can tell he's struggling with the idea. "Then we need evidence," Lucy said firmly, "and this party might be our chance to get it." I stared at her. "What do you mean?" "If Mom is doing something to your food, she'll probably try again at the party. We can watch her, maybe even catch her in the act." My heart raced at the thought. It was dangerous, but it might be our only chance to uncover the truth. "Okay," I said, taking a deep breath. "I'll do it." Lucy nodded, her expression grim. "I'll talk to Corey. We'll figure out a plan." As we headed back inside, I caught sight of Linda watching us through the window. Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. A chill ran down my spine. Back in the living room, Max looked at me questioningly. I squared my shoulders and turned to Linda. "We'd love to come to the party," I said, forcing a smile. "Thank you for including us. Linda's answering smile didn't reach her eyes. Wonderful. I'll make sure everything is perfect. As Lucy and Corey said their goodbyes, I felt the weight of my decision settling over me. I was walking into the lion's den, risking my health, maybe even my life, to expose the truth. But as I met Linda's cold gaze across the room, I knew I had no choice. It was time to end this, one way or another. The anniversary party was in full swing, the house filled with laughter and chatter. I stood in a corner, my untouched glass of wine a shield against Linda's persistent offers of food. Lucy caught my eye from across the room, giving me a subtle nod. Our plan was in motion. "Sarah, dear," Linda's voice cut through my thoughts, "you simply must try this special dish I made just for you." My heart raced as she approached, carrying a plate of something that smelled divine. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I stood my ground. "It looks wonderful, Linda," I said, forcing a smile, "but I'm not very hungry right now." Her eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. "Nonsense. You've barely eaten all night. Here, just a small bite." As she pressed the plate into my hands, I saw Max watching us intently from across the room. I met his gaze, silently pleading for help. "Mom," he called, striding over, "why don't you let Sarah enjoy the party? She'll eat when she's ready." Linda's smile tightened. "Of course, dear. I'll just leave this here for when you're hungry, Sarah." She set the plate on a nearby table and moved away, but I could feel her eyes on me for the rest of the evening. Hours passed in a haze of tension and forced small talk. I was hyper-aware of every move Linda made, every dish she served. Lucy and Corey kept close, running interference when they could. As the party began to wind down, I slipped into the kitchen for a moment of quiet. The room was empty, dirty dishes piled high in the sink. I leaned against the counter, taking deep breaths to calm my frayed nerves. A muffled thud from the pantry made me jump. Curious, I crept closer, pressing my ear to the door. "Dale?" Linda's voice, hushed but urgent. "Dale, what are you doing in here?" "Just feeling a bit off," Dale's voice replied, sounding strained. "Needed some air." "Well, come out of there. People will talk if they see you hiding in the pantry." The door swung open, and I barely had time to duck behind the island. Through the gap beneath, I saw Dale's unsteady feet, followed by Linda's sensible shoes. "Here," Linda said. "I made you some tea. It'll settle your stomach." "Thanks, dear," Dale mumbled. "I don't know what's come over me. Must have been something I ate." My blood ran cold. The symptoms of sudden illness, it was all too familiar. I peered over the island, watching in horror as Dale lifted the teacup to his lips. Without thinking that, I leapt to my feet. "Dale, don't drink that!" Both Dale and Linda whirled to face me, shock evident on their faces. The teacup slipped from Dale's hand, shattering on the floor. "Sarah?" Dale looked bewildered. "What on earth?" But his words were cut short as he suddenly doubled over, clutching his stomach, his face contorted in pain, mirroring the agony I'd experienced so many times before. "Dale!" I rushed forward, supporting him as he swayed on his feet. "Max! Lucy! Someone call an ambulance!" The kitchen erupted into chaos. Max and Lucy burst in, followed by a crowd of concerned party guests. As Max helped his father to a chair, I turned to confront Linda. But she was gone. "Where's Mom?" Lucy asked, her voice tight with worry. A cold dread settled over me. If Linda had fled, it could only mean one thing. She knew we were onto her. As the sound of approaching sirens filled the air, I met Max's panicked gaze across the room. In that moment, I saw the last of his doubts crumble away. "Sarah," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What's happening?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "I think it's time we told everyone the truth about your mother." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to me. As I opened my mouth to speak, I knew that whatever happened next would change our lives forever. The ambulance sirens wailed as we raced through the night, Dale's labored breathing a constant reminder of the urgency of our situation. Max clutched his father's hand, his face a mask of worry and confusion. I sat across from them, my mind racing, trying to piece together the events of the evening. "He'll be okay, right?" Max's voice cracked as he looked at me pleadingly. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The truth was I had no idea. If Linda had been poisoning me all this time, what had she given Dale? And where was she now? As we burst through the emergency room doors, a flurry of activity erupted around us. Doctors and nurses swarmed Dale, whisking him away for tests and treatment. Max moved to follow, but a nurse gently held him back. "Sir, you need to wait here. We'll update you as soon as we can." Max slumped into a chair, his head in his hands. I sat beside him, rubbing his back in small circles. "Sarah," he said, his voice muffled, "what did you mean back there? About telling the truth about my mother?" I took a deep breath. It was time. "Max, I think your mother has been poisoning me, and now I think she might have done the same to your father." He looked up at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. "What? No, that's impossible. She wouldn't." "Think about it," I urged. "Every time I got sick, it was after eating something she prepared, and tonight with your father." Max shook his head, but I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes. "But why? Why would she do something like that?" Before I could answer, Lucy and Corey burst into the waiting room. "Any news?" Lucy asked breathlessly. We shook our heads. Lucy sank into a chair across from us, her face pale. "I can't believe this is happening," she whispered. "And Mom, where is she?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. None of us wanted to voice our suspicions out loud. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the occasional update from a nurse. Dale was stable, they said, but still undergoing tests. They couldn't tell us more. As dawn broke, casting a pale light through the waiting room windows, a doctor approached us. "Family of Dale Thompson?" We all stood, a united front against whatever news was coming. "Mr. Thompson is stable," the doctor began, and I felt a collective sigh of relief. "But we've found something concerning in his blood work. There are traces of a powerful laxative in his system, far beyond what would be considered safe or normal use." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Max stumbled, and I grabbed his arm to steady him. "A laxative?" Lucy's voice was barely above a whisper. "But how?" The doctor looked uncomfortable. "Given the concentration, it's unlikely this was accidental. We've had to report this to the authorities." As if on cue, 2 police officers entered the waiting room, their faces grim. "We need to ask you all some questions," one of them said, "starting with the whereabouts of Linda Thompson." Max turned to me, his face a mixture of shock, betrayal, and dawning realization. "Sarah, you were right. All this time, you were right." I nodded, feeling no satisfaction in the confirmation of my worst fears. "I'm so sorry, Max. I wish I'd been wrong." As the police began their questioning, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number, but I knew instantly who it was from. "You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy now, you ungrateful girl. This isn't over." I showed the message to Max, watching as the last of his doubt crumbled away. His jaw set in a hard line as he turned to the police officers. "Officers," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil I knew he must be feeling. "I think we need to tell you everything, right from the beginning." As Max began to speak, I steeled myself for what was to come. Linda was still out there, angry and desperate. And something told me she wasn't done with us yet. The police escorted us back to Linda and Dale's house, the flashing lights of their cruisers casting eerie shadows across the once familiar facade. As we entered, the remnants of the party stood in stark contrast to the gravity of our mission. "Where should we start?" one of the officers asked. I took a deep breath. The kitchen. That's where it all happened. As we moved through the house, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Linda's presence seemed to linger in every corner, every shadow. In the kitchen, I headed straight for the pantry. "She always kept her special ingredients in here," I explained, my voice barely above a whisper. The officer opened the door, and there on the top shelf sat an array of innocuous-looking bottles and boxes. But I knew better. "There," I pointed, my hand shaking, "the ones labeled dietary supplements." As the officer carefully bagged the evidence, Max let out a choked sob. "I can't believe this. All this time." I wrapped my arm around him, offering what little comfort I could. "I'm so sorry, Max." Suddenly, a noise from upstairs made us all freeze. Footsteps, then a muffled curse. "Linda," Max breathed, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and anger. The officers drew their weapons, motioning for us to stay back. But as they moved towards the stairs, a figure appeared at the top. Linda stood there, her usually immaculate appearance disheveled, her eyes wild. When she saw us, her face contorted with rage. "You," she spat, her gaze fixed on me. "You've ruined everything." Before anyone could react, she charged down the stairs. I braced myself for impact, but Max stepped in front of me, his voice firm. "Enough, Mom. It's over." Linda froze, her eyes darting between Max and me. Max, honey, you don't understand. I was trying to protect you, to keep our family together. By poisoning Sarah? Max's voice cracked. By hurting Dad? Linda's face crumpled. I never meant to hurt Dale. He wasn't supposed to eat that food. It was for her. She jabbed a finger at me. As the officers moved to restrain Linda, the full weight of what had happened crashed over me. This woman, who was supposed to be family, had systematically tried to destroy me. And in the process, she'd nearly killed her own husband. Why? I asked, my voice barely audible. Why did you hate me so much? Linda's eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw something like regret flicker across her face. You were taking my son away, changing him. I couldn't let that happen. As the officers led Linda away, reading her rights, Max turned to me. Sarah, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you sooner. I shook my head, pulling him close. You believe me now? That's what matters. In the days that followed, the truth came out in bits and pieces. The laxatives in the kitchen were just the tip of the iceberg. Linda had been slowly poisoning me for months, escalating her efforts when she realized I was growing suspicious. Dale, thankfully, made a full recovery. When he learned the truth about Linda's actions, he was devastated, but resolute in his support of Max and me. In the end, faced with overwhelming evidence, Linda accepted a plea deal. She would pay restitution, $30,000 to cover my medical expenses and lost wages, and undergo mandatory psychiatric treatment. It wasn't the justice I'd imagined, but it was something. As Max and I packed up our things, preparing to move back to our own home, I paused in the doorway of what had been our bedroom. So much had changed in such a short time. Are you ready? Max asked, coming up behind me. I turned to face him, seeing the mix of pain and hope in his eyes. I think so. Are you? He nodded, taking my hand. It won't be easy, but we'll get through this, together. As we walked out of the house, leaving behind the shadows of the past few months, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. Linda's actions had nearly torn this family apart. But in facing the truth and standing together, we'd found a strength we never knew we had. And that, I realized, was the real inheritance, not money or property, but the bonds that held us together, stronger now for having been tested. We drove away, leaving the house behind. But as we turned onto the main road, I couldn't help but glance back one last time. The chapter of our lives in that house was over, but our story, Max's and mine, was just beginning.